So I was ground handling with a couple of newer pilots the other day, and we were discussing launch position and body position and the forces involved. And it turns out that it's not entirely obvious. So I wanted to demonstrate some of that stuff and try and keep the physics and maths out of it as much as possible and just keep it really simple. So fundamentally what we're trying to do is get a glider from flat on the ground, pull it up, and then accelerate it to flying speed. So all the forces from the glider are all transferred through the risers to wherever we contact the glider. And that might be where we're holding the risers, in the harness, whatever. The other important point of contact is our feet with the ground. Our body is between where we can apply force to the ground and where we can apply force to the glider. And that difference between those 2 points changes the amount of forward force that we can put into the glider to make it accelerate. So what we often see with newer pilots is trying to launch like this. And this is going to be, because this is up pretty high, it's kind of once the wing's overhead, but we see people trying to launch like this with little steps with their arms up. So what's happening here is the glider is pulling back that way against us. So we need to push forwards and down this way to oppose that. So you can see from here, that's very hard to do, especially if you're only taking little steps. Okay, so some people, their shoulders might not do other positions. So if you're going to do this, you need to get your feet right back to there. Better still is, instead of having your arms up here and running, is to have your arms back here. Up here, our contact point that we're pulling on the glider is up here, so it's a long way above our feet. So the angle between our feet and that contact point is wholly what determines how much forward pressure we can put on the wing. So from here, if we're standing upright, there's no pressure. If we have our feet back, there's more pressure, but we're still impacting the glider here. This is where we're putting the force on. So we've got all of this other stuff attached to us. So if we go from here to arms back, now the force is down here, and it's actually across my belly. So the contact point really with the glider is down here now, and you can see my feet are back there. But what you often find when you're doing this is that your hands are too low and you're actually putting brake on. So one trick is to turn your palms up, and that gives you that much extra height. So that's as high as I can get my arms with my palms down. Palms up is up there. So I'm right up at the pulleys on the risers, putting no brake on at all. So when it's really windy, this is a great way to get off the hill, to push forward. And you can see the amount of distance between this point and my feet that's allowing me to put a lot of forward pressure on. When we're reverse launching, often people will hold their risers, A's and C's, so they're basically holding up here and holding onto the risers and trying to launch like this, okay? So then again, this is our contact point with the glider, and our feet are barely behind us from this vertical line. So if you relax back into the harness, now my contact point really is down here. So you can see already the difference in angle there. And then you just pull the A's or C's as you need them, but otherwise have them back and let the glider and the harness take all of that weight, not hanging up here on your arms. And even if you stand up straight and doing like this, you end up contacting here and up on your back, which essentially averages out to the force being applied about here somewhere. But if you're back like this, you can sit right down, and now my bum is touching the seat board right down here, so you can see how flat that angle is. So I'm mostly pushing forwards. Another thing, when you are reverse launching, if you're up like this and a gust comes, people often get pulled up like that or try and pull the glider. What you need to do is actually sit down in the harness more. When you sit down in the harness, it'll actually shoot the wing forward. It puts more load in, puts a higher wing loading, it'll fly faster, and it'll shoot up and back overhead. So if you're standing like that and a gust comes, you can just drop back and down and really load the harness, and that will pull the wing forward. So next time you're launching, get somebody to film you and see whether you're doing this. The other thing that a lot of people do is they think that they're leaning forward, but they're doing this. And they're just bending at the hips, and their feet are still under here and not very far in front. This is our contact point. Their feet are still not back very far behind them. So again, you need to get your feet back. And the other really good trick is, if you watch a sprinter in a 100-metre race, when they start, their first couple of steps are short, and then before long, they're taking massive steps. So when you're accelerating, don't just step faster, step longer. It's really hard to move your legs quickly, but if you can just take longer steps, really power back and leave that foot on the ground as far back as you can. Drive off with your toes. And you're leaning against the glider, you're not going to fall over on your face. You should have bruises across your belly, not necessarily across your arms when you've been ground handling for a while. You should be bruising your ribs. Hope that helps.